My name is Audrey Thompson. I'm 30 years old, single mom, and last weekend I watched my older brother slap my daughter across the face while our father applauded and my mother pretended not to see. That was the moment everything shattered, but honestly, it had been cracking for years. I just kept taping the pieces together, pretending that family meant something, that blood demanded loyalty, even when it bruised you. It happened at my parents' lake house. We hadn't all been in the same room in almost 3 years, and even then it was stiff and sour. But this time, Mom had insisted. She called it a reunion, said she missed the whole family together, especially Lily, my 8-year-old daughter, said the house would be filled with laughter again. I almost said no, like I had every other year, but Lily begged me. She had this picture in her head of Christmas lights and Coco and snow angels with her cousins. And for a second, I wanted to believe it too. I wanted to believe we could rewrite the script. The lake house sits in upstate New York, perched on a frozen shoreline like a postcard. It looks peaceful from the outside, but for me, walking into that house is like swallowing broken glass. My father, Howard, is the kind of man who believes emotions are a form of weakness, and that success is a scoreboard. My mother, Eleanor, she wears sweetness like a silk blouse, delicate, expensive, but easily torn. And Derek, my older brother, by 5 years, he's the crown prince. Ivy League firm handshake, firm opinions, firm backhand apparently. Growing up, I learned again quickly that my job was to be small, agreeable, invisible when needed. I was the one who held the camera during Derek's soccer games, not the one in the photos, the one who ran the dishwasher while he got praise for mowing half the lawn. I used to tell myself they just didn't know better, that if I kept showing up, kept smiling one day, they'd see me, really see me. But they only ever saw Derek. Even when he failed, even when he hurt people. Especially then, the golden boy could do no wrong. When he got his ex-girlfriend pregnant in college, they paid her off and blamed those kinds of girls. When he embezzled money from a nonprofit, he managed, they called it a misunderstanding. When he pushed his wife during an argument last spring, and the neighbors called the cops, they said she was dramatic. And me, when I filed for divorce from Lily's father after he cheated on me and drained our savings, they called me a quitter, said I had no backbone, said I was setting a bad example for my daughter. The irony would be funny if it didn't still sting. But I went to the lake house. I packed Lily's bag with care, her favorite pajamas, her sketch pad, and the small quilt she slept with every night stitched from pieces of my old college t-shirts. I brought wine, a homemade pecan pie, and what was left of my optimism. The first night, things were fine, polite. Derek stayed glued to his phone. Mom hovered in the kitchen performing concern. Dad grunted hello and started a fire. Lily laughed with her cousin Emma, both of them in matching reindeer pajamas, and for a second, I let myself breathe. Maybe this could be different. The next day, I caught Derek mocking Lily's drawing. She'd sketched a snow-covered cottage with a crooked chimney and a son wearing sunglasses. He held it up and laughed. "Looks like something drawn by a blind hamster," he said. Lily's face fell and I felt the old fury bubble up. I asked him to stop quietly at first. He rolled his eyes. Dad chuckled. "She needs thicker skin," he said. That night, I sat by the fireplace alone after everyone had gone to bed. The room smelled like pine and stale wine. On the mantel was a family photo from 15 years ago. Derek front and center, of course. Me off to the side, eyes squinting in the sun. Even in pictures, I was peripheral. I stared at it until my eyes blurred. In my lap was a scarf Lily had started knitting. She had dropped a stitch and gotten frustrated earlier, but I told her it added character, that it made it hers. I held that imperfect little loop and thought maybe we passed down more than we intend. The day it happened was deceptively cheerful. Snow falling like confetti music playing in the background, the kitchen full of food. Lily was setting the table when Derek came in complaining about her being in the way. She apologized. He told her not to talk back. I stepped in, told him to back off. He called me overprotective, said I was turning her into a weakling. I told him to shut up. And then, with everyone watching, he slapped Lily. It wasn't hard enough to bruise, but it was sharp. Sudden. Lily froze. Her hand flew to her cheek. I gasped. Everything stopped. For half a second, I thought maybe the room would rise up. Maybe Mom would scream. Maybe Dad would shout. But Mom just clutched her pearls and muttered something about not making a scene. Dad said, sometimes a kid needs to learn respect. And Derek just smirked. Something in me cracked. I took Lily by the hand and walked straight out into the snow. Didn't grab our coats. Didn't look back. She was trembling. I wrapped her in my arms and whispered, I'm so sorry. This is not your fault. We're leaving. For good. But here's where the story bends. A week before the reunion, Paul, my cousin's husband, who works in media production, had come by to set up some hidden cameras and mics for a family legacy video. My parents had agreed, thinking it was about capturing traditions and interviews for future generations. What they didn't know was that I had asked Paul to make sure the living room and dining room mics were recording full time. I didn't expect anything to happen, not really, but some small part of me wanted a record. Proof. Insurance. Something to keep me sane. And now I had it. Back at home, I held Lily all night. She asked me why Uncle Derek was so mean. I told her some people think power gives them the right to hurt others. She asked me why Grandma didn't stop him. I couldn't answer. The next morning, I called Paul. You have the audio and video, he said. High def. It caught everything, even your dad clapping. Send it to me. I opened my laptop. I wrote an email, not to my family, to a lawyer, and to a local journalist I knew from college, who now ran a podcast about toxic family dynamics and generational trauma. I didn't include commentary, just the file. Subject line, what family values really look like. I hit send. Next, a hearing, a restraining order, a conversation with CPS, and the beginning of a very different kind of story. But that's a chapter for another time. The morning after I sent the video, I woke up to Lily humming in the kitchen, trying to pour cereal into her bowl with both hands while balancing her favorite scarf around her neck. The same one she'd been knitting at the lake house, dropped stitches and all. I stared at her for a moment, this small, resilient human being who still believed in kindness after everything. It reminded me of something Paul said once. Half joking, half dead serious kids carry the story you let them believe. Make it a good one. By noon, the first email hit. The journalist, Miranda Knox, responded with one line. This needs to be heard. I'll handle it carefully. Can I call you today? 30 minutes later, my phone buzzed. I picked up on the second ring. Hey Audrey, this is Miranda. I watched the footage. Her voice was calm, but I could feel the heat under it. It's disturbing, but also powerful. Are you okay? I hesitated. Was I okay? Honestly, I didn't know. I was tired, shaky, angry, afraid, and relieved all at once. I'm not sure yet, I said, but I'm not hiding anymore. Miranda asked if I'd be willing to talk on record. Not just as a victim, but as a mother standing up against generational abuse. She wanted to do an episode titled, The House That Silence Built. I said yes before I could second-guess myself. That same week, my lawyer Karen Wu filed a restraining order against Derek on behalf of Lily. The goal wasn't just to keep him away, but to establish legal precedent that he posed an emotional and physical threat to my child. When I told my parents I expected silence, instead, they sent a letter handwritten as if that made it noble. It was 4 pages of performative outrage, ending with a line that made my stomach turn. You are destroying this family with your drama. Lily will hate you one day for taking away her grandparents. That letter stayed on my kitchen counter for days. Every time I looked at it, I saw the jagged loops of my mother's cursive, her trademark perfume smudged into the paper like she thought I'd sniff it and be transported back into compliance. I didn't throw it away. I sealed it in a box labeled proof. One day, I'd show it to Lily. Not as vengeance, but as honesty. 2 days later, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I let it ring. It rang again and again. On the 4th time I picked up. Hey Audrey, it's Paul. His voice was strained. I just wanted to give you a heads up. Your mom came by the studio. My stomach dropped. She was asking about the footage, said she wanted a copy for family archiving. I didn't give her anything, obviously. But she's fishing. Be careful. Be careful. It echoed like a drumbeat. Miranda's podcast dropped that Friday. By Saturday morning, it had over 600,000 listens. She had edited it brilliantly. starting with a soft intro, then layering in the audio clip from the lake house. Derek's voice rising, the sharp crack of his hand meeting Lily's cheek, my gasp. My father's chilling clap. Then silence. Then my voice cracking, shaking, but clear. We're leaving, for good. She followed it with our interview woven through with commentary about toxic loyalty, the myth of the perfect family, the price women pay to keep peace. It was raw, unapologetic, and it ignited something. Strangers messaged me from every corner of the country. Some shared their own stories. Others just said thank you. A few called me brave. I didn't feel brave. I felt exposed, like my skin had been peeled back and my nerves were buzzing in open air. But then came the backlash. My cousin Emma posted on Facebook, "Some people would rather sell out their own blood for internet fame than deal with things privately, like adults." She didn't name me, but everyone knew. Derek's wife, Lindsay, sent me a text dripping with venom. "Congrats on humiliating your family. Hope it was worth it." Even my father sent an email, one sentence, "No greeting, no sign-off. You were always good at playing the victim." That one hit different. Not because it surprised me, but because it proved exactly why I'd done what I did. The court hearing for the restraining order was set for the following Tuesday. Karen prepped me like we were going into battle. She told me to stay calm, stick to facts, and remember that truth, especially when inconvenient, often gets called drama. We arrived early. The courtroom was small, sterile. Derek showed up in a navy suit, smug and well-groomed, flanked by his attorney, a man who looked like he smiled only when billing hours. My parents sat behind him. My mother wore pearls. My father didn't look at me once. When the judge called the case, my heart thundered. Karen spoke first, walking through the footage, the emotional toll on Lily, the patterns of hostility. Then came the video. The room held its breath. Even the court reporter paused her typing during the slap. Derek's attorney objected, saying the recording was taken without knowledge, hence inadmissible. Karen countered that it was made in a common area with prior verbal consent for family documentation. The judge allowed it. Then it was Derek's turn. He said it was a misunderstanding, that Lily was acting out and he gestured too fast. He said I was spiraling and had a history of mental instability. I almost laughed. That's always the go-to, right? Make the woman sound unhinged so no one listens to her. When it was my turn, I stood. Hands slightly shaking, but voice steady. I looked straight at the judge. This isn't about a slap. It's about a pattern. About a family that tells women and children to stay small, to stay quiet, and to say thank you while it breaks them. The judge ruled in my favor. Restraining order granted for 1 year with provisions to renew. Derek stormed out without looking back. My mother followed him. My father lingered a second longer. Then he said, "You made your choice," and left. As I sat back down, Karen handed me a copy of the ruling. Her voice was low. "You didn't just protect your daughter, you broke a cycle." I nodded, but my throat was tight. Because here's the truth, no one tells you even when you win, it still hurts. Outside the courthouse, Lily was drawing in her sketchbook, sitting on a bench with Paul. She ran to me when she saw my face. "Are we safe now?" she whispered. I crouched to her level. "Yeah, baby, we're safe now." That night, I got a voicemail from Lindsay, Derek's wife. Her voice was quiet, shaky. She said she listened to the podcast, that she saw the video. That part of her always knew. Then she said she was taking Emma and leaving. "Thank you," she whispered just before the beep. I sat in the dark for a long time after that, staring at the glow of Lily's nightlight. It was shaped like a fox, her favorite animal. She said foxes were clever and fast and always found their way home. I thought about how true that was, not just for foxes, for women like us too. But I also knew this wasn't over. My family was wounded, cornered, and bitter. And people like that don't go quietly. 2 days later, I got served. My parents were filing for grandparents' rights. And suddenly, the next battle wasn't just about Lily's safety. It was about who gets to define family at all. When the envelope came, I knew before I even opened it. The weight of it, the embossed letterhead, the strange blend of aggression masked in formality. Grandparents' rights. That's what they were going for. A legal loophole wrapped in sentiment weaponized through nostalgia. It's the kind of thing you never think will be used against you until it is. until the people who were supposed to protect your child become the ones you need protection from. The petition said they feared for their relationship with Lily, that I was emotionally unstable, vindictive, and using my child to punish the family. My mother wrote a personal affidavit claiming she had been a primary emotional caregiver to Lily since birth. That line made me laugh so hard I had to sit down. My parents had never even babysat Lily alone. The closest they'd come to emotional caregiving was giving her a Target gift card last Christmas with my name misspelled on the envelope. Karen! My attorney wasn't laughing. She read through the papers with a tight jaw, scribbling notes and muttering under her breath. "They're trying to paint you as unstable," she said. "Classic defense tactic, flip the script and make you the threat." I stared at her. "They're trying to force my daughter to have a relationship with the man who clapped when she was hit." She nodded. "I know, and we're not letting that happen. But it's going to be messy." Messy was an understatement. The petition opened a new legal front, one that focused not just on past events, but on character, lifestyle, mental fitness. Suddenly, everything from my bank statements to my Instagram posts were fair game. My private grief was now courtroom currency. Miranda's podcast had brought national attention and support, but it had also made me a target. Every word I said was dissected. Every decision I made as a parent questioned. That scarf Lily dropped a stitch in, I found myself staring at it one night, wondering if it made me look like a careless mother, letting a child knit unsupervised with needles. The worst part wasn't the court. It wasn't even the endless paperwork or the forced mediation sessions. It was Lily. She knew something was wrong. Children always do. She started having trouble sleeping, drew pictures of wolves in suits. When I asked her why, she whispered, "They're pretending to be nice, but they're not." I cried in the laundry room that night. The kind of quiet, breathless crying where you bury your face in a towel so your kid won't hear. The kind where your body folds in on itself. I wasn't just fighting my parents. I was fighting the whole idea that family by blood alone is entitled to your life. That trauma, wrapped in tradition, still deserves a seat at the dinner table. During the first mediation session, they acted like wounded saints. My mother wore a pale blue cardigan and brought homemade cookies as if this were a church bake sale and not a custody negotiation. My father sat stiff silent with a Bible in his lap. The mediator, a tired woman named Denise, opened the session with a smile too tight to be real. "We're here to discuss the possibility of structured visitation. The court recognizes the value of extended family relationships." I cut her off. My daughter was slapped by my brother in front of my parents. They clapped. They called her weak. And now they want court-mandated access to her. "Are you hearing yourself?" My mother dabbed her eyes with a tissue. "We made a mistake. That doesn't mean we should be erased from her life." "No," I said, my voice trembling. "You didn't make a mistake. You made a choice. You chose him, again." The mediator blinked. "Let's take a pause." Outside the room, Karen whispered, "You're not wrong, but remember, emotion is ammunition for them. They'll say you're too reactive." Too reactive. As if staying calm while someone tries to steal your child is just good manners. After the second session failed, they went public. My mother wrote a letter to the local paper. "Our granddaughter is being kept from us due to a misunderstanding. We pray for reconciliation and healing." The comments exploded. Some people sympathized. Others called me cruel. A local morning show picked it up and did a segment titled, "When Family Falls Apart, Are Grandparents the New Victims?" I wanted to scream. That weekend, Lily had a nightmare. She came into my room crying. I dreamed they took me away. I didn't want to go, but nobody listened. I held her and promised that wouldn't happen. But even as I said the words, I wasn't sure. The law wasn't black and white. Grandparents' rights varied state by state. And ours allowed petitions if one parent was deemed unfit. And they were coming for that title. My mother's lawyer subpoenaed my therapy records. They argued my postpartum depression 6 years ago was proof I couldn't be trusted alone. They brought up a tweet I'd written 2 years back. "Some days I just want to disappear." I had posted it on the anniversary of my miscarriage. They used it in court as evidence of suicidal ideation. I sat in that courtroom and watched as the story of my life was torn apart and rearranged into something unrecognizable. And all the while, Lily's voice echoed in my head. "They're pretending to be nice, but they're not." The twist came quietly. One night as I was packing away court papers, Paul texted me, "You need to talk to Lindsay, Derek's wife, the one who'd left him." We met at a diner halfway between our homes. She looked tired, haunted almost. "I know what they're doing," she said, stirring her coffee with shaking hands. "And I have something that could help." She pulled out a flash drive. "I didn't know whether to give this to you." I was scared, but I'm more scared now of what they'll do if you lose. The flash drive contained audio, Derek yelling at Emma, threatening her, calling her names I won't repeat. Lindsay had recorded it during their final weeks together, unsure if she'd need it in court, but she never used it, until now. I gave it to Karen. She filed it as supplemental evidence. It changed everything. The judge reviewed it in chambers. The audio was damning, not just because of what Derek said, but because of what it revealed about the family culture, the environment, the normalization of cruelty. Suddenly, their whole narrative, loving grandparents, just trying to stay in a child's life, collapsed. The petition was denied. No visitation, no legal access, and the court issued a warning any further harassment could result in restraining orders. I walked out of the courthouse into the crisp fall air, Lily's hand in mine. We didn't speak for a few blocks. Then she looked up and said, "Can we go get ice cream?" I laughed, "Absolutely." We sat on a park bench, her face smeared with chocolate, her scarf wrapped loosely around her neck. She looked up at the sky and said, "You know, Mama, I think wolves in suits can't eat you if you have your own armor." I blinked. "Where'd you hear that?" "I made it up," she said. "But I think it's true." That night, I took the scarf, the one with the dropped stitch, and framed it. Hung it above Lily's bed, a symbol, a reminder that imperfect things are still strong, that broken doesn't mean destroyed, that we survived. But even then, even with the case dismissed, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't the end. My family wasn't the type to lose quietly. I could feel it, like the calm before a different kind of storm. And I was right. 3 weeks later, I got a message from someone I didn't recognize. "Are you Audrey Thompson? I think we need to talk. I believe I'm your half-sister." I must have reread that message 20 times. "Are you Audrey Thompson? I think we need to talk. I believe I'm your half-sister." It didn't feel real at first. I thought maybe it was a prank, a troll trying to take advantage of the story going viral. But then I looked at the profile. Her name was Haley Evans. She lived 2 states away, no mutual friends. Her photo was recent mid-30s hazel eyes, same mouth shape as mine, and there was something about her smile tight around the edges, like someone who'd taught herself not to expect too much. I stared at that picture for a long time. Then I replied, "Hi, Haley. I don't know what to say. How do you think we're related?" She answered within the hour. "My mom's name is Teresa Evans. She passed away 2 years ago. She told me on her deathbed that my father's name was Howard Thompson." I just stared at the screen. Howard, my father. I wanted to scream, laugh, cry all at once. I didn't know what to believe. I didn't want to believe it. But I also knew in my gut, deep down, I'd always known there was more to his silence, that his cruelty had roots. I asked her if she wanted to meet. She said yes. We picked a cafe in Albany, a quiet spot halfway between us. Paul offered to come with me, but I told him no. This was something I had to face alone. The day of the meeting, I left Lily with a sitter and drove in silence. My hands were trembling the whole time. I clutched the steering wheel like it was the only solid thing in the world. I couldn't stop thinking about that scarf above Lily's bed, the dropped stitch. The idea that broken things can still be whole. What would this mean for Lily, for me? When I walked into the cafe, Haley was already there, sitting by the window with a black coffee in front of her. She looked up as I approached, and for a second, we just stared at each other. No words, just 2 strangers sharing a face. I sat down slowly. "You look like him," she said. I flinched. "You don't," I replied. That made her laugh, a soft, bitter sound. That's probably a good thing. We talked for 2 hours. Her mother, Teresa, had worked as a nurse in the same hospital where my dad was on the board. They had a 2-year affair. Haley was born when I was 6. He visited her a few times when she was a baby, sent checks, then vanished. Mom never badmouthed him, Haley said. She said he had a real family, a daughter, a wife. That we were the secret, and secrets don't get birthdays. I felt like the air had been knocked out of me. All these years I thought I was the family he ignored. Turns out I was just the family he acknowledged. Barely. He denied it when I wrote him, she said. Told me I was confused. That if I contacted him again, he'd get a lawyer. Typical, classic Howard Thompson. I didn't know what to say. There's no script for this. No Hallmark ending where we hug and braid each other's hair. But there was something grounding about her. She was blunt, calm, not desperate for connection, just truth. We agreed to do a DNA test. Not because we needed proof, but because facts have a way of shutting people up. And maybe on some level, I just needed it in writing. While we waited for the results, I couldn't stop thinking about my childhood. The nights I cried myself to sleep, wondering why my dad was so cold. The way he always called me dramatic when I cried weak when I spoke up. And suddenly, I wondered, was I just the daughter who reminded him of his shame of what he gave up? I told Karen, I told Miranda, I didn't tell Lily. Not yet. The results came back 2 weeks later, 99.8% match. Haley Evans was my half-sister. I stared at the document in stunned silence. My whole life had been shaped by the Thompson name, and now it felt like that name had been sliced in half. But Haley didn't want revenge. She didn't want money. She didn't even want a relationship necessarily. She just wanted the truth to matter. And something in me respected that more than I could say. Then the idea came. What if we told your story too? I asked her. She blinked, like, on the podcast. No, I said. Something bigger. A documentary. Not just about my family. About all of this. About how families hide things, protect monsters, silence women. About what it means to survive. She looked at me like she was seeing a version of herself she hadn't believed possible. You really want to burn it all down? No, I said. I want to rebuild something better from the ashes. I called Paul. He was in. We started gathering material. Old family photos, Haley's childhood records, letters her mom had saved. We found inconsistencies in my dad's financial records too. Karen helped me file a request for audit. Nothing illegal yet, but definitely shady. But here's the thing about exposing powerful people, they don't sit still. A week into filming, I got a cease and desist letter from my parents' lawyer, claiming I was slandering the family, that I was exploiting private pain for public gain. Paul called it panic in paper form. Miranda said it was a bluff. Karen agreed. Still, it shook me, because even now, even with all I knew, there was a small voice inside me, shaped like an 8-year-old girl, whispering, maybe this time they'll change. But they didn't change. Instead, they tried something worse. They leaked photos of me and Lily. Old ones. From family holidays, from birthdays. And they framed them online as proof that I was unstable, that I'd alienated Lily from loving grandparents who'd done nothing wrong. It worked at least for a moment. People turned. Comment sections got ugly. One post claimed I was raising Lily in a paranoid man-hating bubble. Another called me emotionally manipulative. That night, Lily cried herself to sleep after overhearing a classmate repeat something their mom had read online. Why do people think you're bad? She asked me. You're not bad. You protect me. I kissed her forehead. Sometimes people lie when they're scared of the truth. And in that moment, I made a decision. We weren't hiding anymore. I released a clip from the documentary in progress, just 2 minutes long, no voiceover, just raw footage. My father clapping, Derek yelling, my mother whispering, she's always been too sensitive. Then a split screen of Haley's DNA results. And finally, a single phrase, what family looks like when you stop pretending. It went viral overnight. Millions of views, thousands of messages, but one stood out. It was from a woman named Margot. She wrote, I knew your father. I worked for him once. There's something you should know. I waited 2 days before replying to Margot's message. Something about it unnerved me. Not because I doubted her, but because I didn't. Her message wasn't dramatic. It wasn't full of accusations or emotion. It was short, too short, and that's what made it real. I knew your father. I worked for him once. There's something you should know. I never came forward because I thought no one would believe me. But now you've started something. I think it's time. I finally wrote back. I want to hear everything. She sent a phone number, said I could call anytime. I waited until Lily was asleep, tucked under the quilt made of my old college t-shirts, the framed scarf with its dropped stitch hanging like a guardian on the wall. Then I dialed. Her voice was calm, older than I expected, not afraid, just tired. I was 22, she began, fresh out of business school. I landed a job as a junior assistant at the firm your dad chaired. I was thrilled. I thought I'd finally made it. She paused. He was charming, sharp, polished, the kind of man who made everyone in the room sit up straighter. You know the type. Yes, I did. He'd ask me to stay late, said I had potential. Then one night he kissed me. I was confused, flattered even, but then it became a pattern. Meetings alone, comments about my clothes. One night he followed me into the copy room and… She stopped, swallowed. I said no. He laughed. Said no one would believe me, that I was lucky to be in the room at all. I felt a cold chill snake through me. I left a month later, she continued. Never told anyone, but I wasn't the only one. There were others. Some quit, some stayed, some still won't talk. Do you have proof? I asked quietly. I have a journal. Time-stamped emails. One woman I stayed in touch with. She said she'd talk, but only if you lead the charge. Lead the charge. The phrase hung in the air like a dare. I thanked her, asked if she'd consider going on record in the documentary. She hesitated, then said, only if it helps someone else break free. After I hung up, I sat in the dark for a long time. My heart felt like it was beating in someone else's chest. I'd always known my father was cold, distant, but this was systemic. It was rot. And he'd worn it under a three-piece suit for decades, smiling for church photos and fundraisers. The next morning, I met Paul and Miranda at the studio. I told them everything. Miranda's face went pale. Paul just leaned back in his chair and muttered, Damn, we're not making a family drama anymore. We're making a takedown. We spent the next week gathering statements. Margot gave us names. We reached out carefully. One woman said no. 2 didn't answer. But a 4th, Carla, said yes. Carla had been a receptionist in the 90s. She'd kept records, HR complaints, emails, notes from conversations. She had kept it all in a box labeled, In case the world catches up. I interviewed her in my living room, under the soft hum of the kitchen light, while Lily slept upstairs. She said the firm buried everything, that my father's misconduct was common knowledge, but off limits. When women complained, they were restructured. When men joked, they were promoted. I once saw him corner a summer intern in the elevator, she said. She was 19, came out crying. He said she was unstable. She was gone the next day. I asked her why she kept the records, because I knew this day would come. Maybe not for me, but for someone. We compiled the footage, the testimonies, the receipts, and as we did, something shifted in me. The grief was still there, the rage, but now it had direction. It had teeth. I wasn't just fighting for Lily. I was fighting for every woman who'd been told her pain was inconvenient, that her story was unflattering, that her silence was the price of admission into polite society. But going public with it, really public, wasn't just risky. It was dangerous. My father still had influence. Friends in media, on boards, in politics. Karen warned me. Once you release this, you can't pull it back. There will be lawyers, PR firms. They'll dig through everything you've ever done. You ready for that? I thought about it. Then I looked at Lily drawing a picture of a fox holding a sword. She said it was a protector fox. I kissed her forehead and said, Let's tell the truth. We released the trailer the next week. It was 2 minutes long. Margot's voice over black screen. They said I should be grateful to work there, that I should smile more. Carla's, I kept the records, just in case. Then the clip of my father at a charity gala, smiling into the camera, giving his classic line, Leadership starts at home. Fade to black. Title legacy. The internet exploded. It wasn't just views this time. It was fire. Women across the country started sharing stories. Hashtags. Memories. Legacy Exposed started trending. Local media picked it up. Then national. The firm went into crisis mode. They issued a statement. We take these allegations seriously. The same line every company recites like scripture. My father took a leave of absence. They said it was for health reasons. The church removed him from the board. A foundation dropped his name from a scholarship. A mural bearing his face was quietly painted over. But it wasn't over. I received death threats, harassment. People said I'd ruined a good man's life, that I was bitter, that I should be grateful for the family I had. But there were others, hundreds, thousands. A woman from Oregon wrote, My dad did the same. I never had the courage to speak. But your voice cracked something open in me. Another from Texas. He was my boss in 1993. I never forgot what he said to me behind closed doors. Thank you for not staying silent. And then one message I never expected. From Derek. It was short, and it shook me to my core. I didn't know about the other daughter or the women. I was an asshole, but I didn't know he was that too. I didn't reply. I wasn't ready. Maybe I never would be. Instead, I focused on finishing the documentary, on helping Margot and Carla find legal support, on keeping Lily safe. One night, as I tucked Lily in, she asked, "Are the wolves still out there?" I nodded. "Yeah, but we have armor now, and a sword." She smiled, like the fox. "Exactly." I turned off the light and stood in the hallway, staring at the framed scarf. That dropped stitch had become something else now. Not just a symbol of survival, but of defiance, of history refused, of the quiet power of flawed women who refused to disappear. But I knew the final piece of this wasn't public. It was private. I had to face my parents one last time. And this time I wouldn't be walking in with hope. I'd be walking in with truth. The lake house was exactly as I remembered it, postcard perfect on the outside hollow and cold on the inside. The snow blanketed the yard in pristine white like a cruel trick from nature pretending everything was pure. I parked at the end of the long gravel driveway and sat in the car with the engine running, staring at the icicles hanging from the porch railing. My hands didn't shake this time. Not like before. I wasn't here for peace or reconciliation or anything naive like closure. I was here for something far more dangerous: honesty. I hadn't spoken to my parents since the documentary dropped, since the firm collapsed, since the stories came pouring out like oil slicks over every curated image my father had built. Miranda had called it one of the most necessary implosions of the year. Paul said, "You burned down a dynasty." But that wasn't the truth. I didn't burn it down. I just lit a match next to the gasoline they'd been hiding under the floorboards for decades. Now I was walking back into the ashes. I had asked them to meet me here. One last time. I told them it was about Lily. That part wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the whole story either. I needed to look into their eyes when I said the things I'd never been allowed to say. Not because I needed them to believe me, but because I needed to hear my own voice echoing off the walls that raised me. I stepped out into the snow and walked to the door. It opened before I could knock. My mother stood there in a beige sweater, set her lipstick too perfect, her eyes tired but defiant. My father was already seated in the living room, hands folded as if he were waiting for a board meeting to begin. "Come in," she said, her voice clipped. I did. I closed the door behind me and took off my coat slowly. The house smelled like cinnamon and denial. There was a plate of cookies on the counter. Of course there was. "Sit," my father said, motioning to the couch across from him, like this was just another quarterly review. I stayed standing. "I'm not staying long," I said. They exchanged glances. "I asked you here because I need you to hear something, and because I need Lily to know I didn't let this end with silence." My father rolled his eyes. "You've said plenty, nationally in fact." My mother added, "You've embarrassed this family enough." "No," I said calmly. "You embarrassed yourselves. I just stopped covering for you." "You made private matters public," she hissed. "You made abuse private," I snapped. "You made it sacred. You put it in a family frame and called it loyalty." "I'm just returning the picture." There was a long silence. My father finally spoke. "Do you feel better now, destroying your own name, smearing your blood?" "I feel free," I said, which is something I didn't even know was possible until recently. My mother looked down. "You've always been dramatic, sensitive. You're rewriting history." "Am I?" I pulled something from my coat pocket and placed it on the table. A framed photo. The one from that Christmas years ago. Derek in the center, me in the corner. But now written in red marker across the glass. This is not who we are anymore. I used to stare at this photo for hours trying to find myself in it. I thought if I smiled harder or spoke softer, maybe I'd finally fit. But you never wanted me. Not really. You wanted a mirror, and I broke that. My mother blinked. "You're our daughter." "No," I said, voice tightening. "I'm your scapegoat, the designated lightning rod, the proof that your cruelty was discipline and your favoritism was structure." "And Derek," I added, leaning forward. "Did you know what he did to Lindsay?" "To Emma." "Did you clap for that too?" My father's jaw tightened. "He's still your brother." "No, He's your legacy, and I buried it. They didn't respond. They couldn't. The truth was too loud now. I met Haley, I said quietly. She's kind, thoughtful. She deserved a father. You gave her shame. My father's hand twitched. My mother paled. That's a private matter, she whispered. No, that's a human matter, and I'm done pretending it's anything else. I took a deep breath. This was the part that scared me most. I'm changing my last name, I said. And Lily's. We're not Thompsons anymore. That finally hit them. My mother gasped. You can't! I said, and I am. You'll erase our name. No, I'm erasing your control over it. There was a long silence. It was like watching a dam crack, not with one loud explosion, but with a slow, inevitable leak. My father looked away. My mother picked at a thread on her sweater. You're hurting Lily, she muttered. She'll grow up confused. No, I said. She'll grow up free. I turned to leave, but stopped at the door. I pulled one last thing from my bag. A copy of the scarf Lily had been knitting. The one with the dropped stitch. I thought about fixing this, I said, holding it up. But I didn't. Because it's exactly what it needs to be. It's flawed. But it's hers. Just like her life. Just like mine. And that's something you'll never understand. I placed it on the table next to the photo and walked out without looking back. Outside, the air hit me like a baptism. I stood for a moment on the porch, breathing in the cold. I felt it fill my lungs. I felt the weight lift. And then I walked back to the car. When I got home, Lily was waiting by the window. She ran into my arms the second I opened the door. Did you tell them? She asked. I smiled, every word. And what did they say? I paused, not much. But that's okay. Sometimes the silence is its own answer. Later that night, I tucked her into bed and she handed me a new drawing. It was of a fox, our fox, standing on a hill with a sword in one paw and a scarf in the other. Behind her stood a smaller fox holding a paintbrush. On the mountain below, shadows slithered but couldn't reach. What's this one called? I asked. She grinned. The end of the old story. And the beginning of our new one. I kissed her forehead and whispered, exactly. I don't know what comes next. I don't have a neat bow to tie this all up with. There's no reunion, no sudden apology, no last-minute redemption arc. There's just us, me and my daughter, and the life we're building not in the image of where we came from, but in defiance of it. The truth didn't set me free. Choosing it did. Story 2. I'm Alex, and today I turned 21. You'd think that'd matter, big milestone birthday, right? A small dinner, a cake, at least a happy birthday text from my parents. But of course nothing. My family had other priorities. I wish I could say I was surprised, but honestly, this is par for the course. Since I was a kid, my parents made it clear I was their runner-up. My younger sister Emma is the golden child. Whatever she wants, she gets. Whatever attention she needs, it's hers. If I ever ask for something that even slightly inconveniences them, tough luck. Still, I clung to this tiny spark of hope that turning 21, finally an adult, would change things. I don't live at home anymore, so I dodge their favoritism most days, but surely on my 21st birthday, they'd make an exception, right? That morning, I texted the family group chat. Hey, what time are we meeting for dinner? Silence. Hours went by. I busied myself thinking someone would ping me back by early evening. Then came that familiar sinking feeling. I called my mom. She answered on the second ring too calmly. Hey, Alex. What's up? I swallowed hard. We're still on for dinner tonight, right? A long pause, then a sigh. Oh, honey, she said, far too sweet. I should have told you earlier. We're going out tonight with Emma. She has some big news to celebrate. My stomach plummeted. Excuse me, I managed. Her tone stayed detached, almost bored. Emma's our focus tonight. We'll celebrate her news. Don't worry, a party for you next weekend. Behind her, I heard Emma's voice. Is that Alex? Tell him we'll save him some leftovers. I hung up my birthday, disappearing in the background of their perfect little world. More laughter. I felt my face heat up. This wasn't just neglect. This was deliberate. I could have argued. I could have yelled. But what was the point? They knew what they were doing. They just didn't care. So I swallowed the lump in my throat and said, yeah, sure, have fun. And then I hung up. I sat there for a moment staring at my phone. My hands were shaking, not from sadness. No, I was pissed. Then I had an idea. I called my girlfriend Lily. Hey, I said, keeping my voice even. Want to go out for dinner tonight? She could tell something was up immediately. Of course. What's wrong? I told her everything. She didn't even hesitate. Come over. My parents will want to celebrate with you too. Now. I love Lily's parents. They've always treated me with more kindness in the past 3 years than my own parents have my whole life. And when I got to their house, her mom greeted me with a hug. Happy birthday, sweetheart. Come in. We're going somewhere nice. We ended up at this high-end steakhouse, the kind of place my parents love to brag about going to. The whole night was perfect. Lily's dad even ordered a bottle of champagne to celebrate me turning 21. And for the first time that day, I actually felt wanted. But the real fun that happened when I posted about it. After dinner, I took a picture of the restaurant entrance and posted it on Instagram with the caption, "Huge thank you to my girlfriend and her amazing family for making my birthday special. So grateful to have people who actually care about me." I wasn't expecting a response from my parents. I figured they wouldn't even see it until the next day. But less than an hour later, my phone started blowing up. First, a text from my mom. "Mom, what is this post, Alex?" Then my dad. "Dad, are you serious right now?" Then a full-on phone call. I let it ring, smirking to myself. Then another, then another. They were fuming, and I knew exactly why. It wasn't guilt. It wasn't regret. It was jealousy. They were the ones who were supposed to be seen as the good parents. They loved playing the role of the perfect family, posting online about their fancy dinners and how proud they were of Emma. But suddenly, I was the one getting attention for being wronged, and they hated that. I finally picked up on the fourth call, keeping my voice casual. "Oh, hey, Mom. What's up?" She went off. "What the hell are you doing, Alex? People are seeing this. You're making us look bad." I held back a laugh. "I'm just thanking the people who actually showed up for my birthday." She gasped like I had stabbed her. "How dare you try to embarrass us like this? You know we would have celebrated with you if we didn't have prior commitments." I snorted. "Oh, right. More exciting news. We raised you, Alex," she snapped, "and this is how you repay us by making us look like that." Parents. I was done, so done. I took a deep breath and said, if you didn't want to look like bad parents, you probably shouldn't have acted like bad parents. Silence. Then my dad got on the phone. "You need to take that post down now." I grinned. "No, Alex." His voice was low, threatening. "If you don't take it down, there will be consequences." I leaned back in my chair. "Oh, like what?" He didn't answer right away. I could hear my mom whispering furiously in the background. Then he said, "We're coming over." And that Reddit is where things got really interesting. I leaned forward, gripping my phone as my dad's words echoed in my ear. "We're coming over." A rush of adrenaline shot through me, but I kept my voice steady. "All right," I said, barely able to contain my smirk. "See you soon." Then I hung up. Lily, who had been sitting next to me on the couch, raised an eyebrow. "That was your parents, wasn't it?" "Oh, yeah," I said, shaking my head. "They're pissed. Apparently I've embarrassed them." Lily rolled her eyes. God forbid they deal with the consequences of their own actions. Her dad, who had been listening from across the room, scoffed. "Let them come. They should see what an actual loving family looks like." Her mom, ever the voice of reason, sighed. "This might get ugly." "Are you sure you want to deal with them tonight?" I exhaled slowly. "Honestly, yeah, I do. I'd spent years letting them treat me like an afterthought. Years of watching them drop everything for Emma, while I was expected to just deal with it. And for the first time, I had the upper hand. They were desperate, scrambling to control the narrative. That meant I was finally doing something right. About 20 minutes later, I heard the unmistakable sound of a car pulling into the driveway. I stood up, stretching like I had all the time in the world, while Lily gave me an encouraging squeeze on the arm. "You got this," she murmured. The doorbell rang. "No." Slammed 3-4 times in rapid succession. "Oh, they're mad, Matt." Lily's dad chuckled and made his way toward the door. "I'll get it." The second he opened it, my mom stormed in like she owned the place. My dad followed, his jaw tight, his eyes immediately locking onto me. "Alex!" My mom's voice was sharp, cutting through the air. "We need to talk now." I crossed my arms. "Go ahead." Her gaze flickered around the room, taking in Lily's parents, the cozy atmosphere, the clear evidence that I was fine, thriving, even without them. It clearly unsettled her. Not here, she said stiffly. Come outside. No thanks, I said, leaning against the couch. If you have something to say, you can say it right here. My dad clenched his fists. Enough with the attitude, Alex. I raised an eyebrow. Attitude? Oh, you mean standing up for myself? Sorry. I'm still getting used to this whole having self-respect thing. My mom let out a sharp breath, her patience wearing thin. We are not going to let you publicly shame us like this. Do you have any idea how many people have seen your post? Your aunts? Your uncles? Do you know how humiliated it is to have our own son paint us as villains? I blinked at her, then deadpanned. Maybe don't be villains then. Lily snorted, and even her dad fought back a chuckle. My mom's face turned red. We are your parents, Alex. We deserve some respect. Oh, respect. You mean like the respect you showed me when you ditched me on my birthday? Or when you laughed at me on the phone, but when you made it abundantly clear that Emma will always come first? I shook my head. Sorry. I must have missed the part where you actually earn my respect. My dad took a step forward, his voice low. You're being dramatic. No, I'm finally being honest, I shot back. The tension in the room was thick. My parents weren't used to this. They were used to me backing down, apologizing for folding. But not this time. Then my mom's gaze landed on Lily. More specifically, the way she was sitting so comfortably beside me, holding my hand like she belonged in my life. And that's when I saw it. The moment my mom realized that I had people now. People who weren't obligated to love me, but did anyway. People who saw my worth. Something she never cared to do, and she hated it. So this is what this is about, she said, voice dripping with condescension. You're trying to replace us with them. Lily stiffened beside me, but I just shrugged. If the shoe fits, my dad scoffed. Enough of this nonsense. You're taking that post down now. I grinned. No. His nostrils flared. Alex, don't test me, or what I challenged. What exactly are you going to do? Ground me. Take away my phone. Oh wait, you can't, because I don't live under your roof anymore. You have zero control over me. That hit a nerve. My dad's face turned an ugly shade of red, and for a second, I thought he was actually going to lose it. My mom, on the other hand, had gone eerily quiet, and that's when she played her trump card. You're going to regret this, Alex, she said softly. You don't realize what you're throwing away. I tilted my head. What am I throwing away exactly? She gave me a knowing look. I looked at send a cold chill down my spine, and then she said, your inheritance. I couldn't help it. I actually laughed in her face. It was almost instinctual, like a reflex. I couldn't hold back. I looked at my mom, eyes narrowing, and let out a short, bitter laugh. Inheritance, I echoed, still chuckling. What inheritance? You think I need your money. You really don't get it, do you? She froze, clearly thrown off by my reaction. I leaned forward, crossing my arms. You've never done anything for me. You've made it clear every chance you've gotten that I'm not important enough for your time, your energy, or your love, so spare me the lecture about what I'm throwing away. Because guess what? You've got nothing left to give me. My mom's mouth opened and closed like a fish, her face twisted in a mix of confusion and anger. And if you think I'd ever accept anything from you after all this, you're delusional. I continued, shaking my head. I don't need your money. I don't need your fake love. You've already given me everything I need to know about you, and it's nothing I'm willing to keep around. My dad looked like he was about to explode. He took a deep breath, his fist clenched at his sides. You're ungrateful. You really want to throw away everything we've given you? I almost felt sorry for him. But then I remembered he had a choice too. He could have stood up for me. Could have actually been a parent instead of a lapdog to my mom's whims. He never did. No. I'm not ungrateful, I said calmly. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend I don't see the kind of people you are. You made your choices, and now I'm making mine. Lily's dad gave me a reassuring nod from across the room, his eyes full of quiet pride. I noticed my mom flinch at that, and I couldn't help but feel a small sense of triumph. She had been so consumed with controlling my life that she'd never even stopped to think that I might be better off without her. You can't just cut us out of your life like this. My mom said, her voice trembling now. We're your family. You'll regret this, Alex. You'll come crawling back, right? I said sarcastically. I'll be right there begging for more empty promises and disrespect. But that'll never happen, because guess what? You've already shown me who you really are. I stood up, my legs feeling surprisingly steady. And I'm done, so if you want to keep throwing threats and guilt trips at me, go ahead. But just know I'm not falling for it anymore. My dad opened his mouth again, but this time he just snapped it shut. They had nothing left. The power they once held over me, the manipulation, the control. It was gone. My mom's eyes were practically burning with fury, but I didn't flinch. Instead, I turned to Lily's parents, giving them a nod of appreciation. Thanks for letting me have this moment, I said softly. But I think it's time for them to leave. Lily's mom, Ever, the calm one, smiled and stood up. We're going to grab a drink in the kitchen. You two should talk. As they walked away, my mom's voice shot through the silence. You're making a mistake, Alex. You'll see. I didn't even acknowledge her. I was done listening to their empty threats. I didn't need to say anything else. The silence between us was thick, suffocating, as my mom and dad stood there, still processing everything I'd just thrown at them. They had no idea what to do with me anymore. Their usual tactics, guilt manipulation, the emotional blackmail they had always used to keep me under their thumb weren't working. Not this time. I stood there feeling more powerful than I ever had in my entire life. It wasn't just the fact that I was finally standing up to them. It was the realization that I no longer cared about their approval. Lily's parents stayed in the background, sensing the tension, but giving us the space we needed. I could feel their support without it ever needing to be said. They weren't just on my side. They were family in a way that felt real. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I had to apologize for existing. Finally, my dad spoke again, his voice low and dangerous. You think this is funny? You think you're going to get away with treating us like this? I locked eyes with him, unfazed. Get away with it, Dad. I've been trying to get away from you for years. The words hung in the air, stark and painful. It was like a weight I'd been carrying for so long, finally lifted off my chest. My mom, still fuming, tried one last tactic. Her voice softened, but it was clear she was just as manipulative as ever. Alex, we're your parents. We've always been here for you. All we've ever wanted was to help you. Don't you remember all we've done for you, how we've always supported you? I shook my head, trying not to laugh again. Really, is that what you think? Because I don't remember any of it. I remember being ignored, pushed aside, made to feel like I wasn't good enough. I remember being the last choice. But sure, if you want to pretend that you've been perfect, go ahead. Her face twisted in a mixture of shock and fury, and I could see the cracks in her perfect little world start to form. She hadn't expected me to fight back like this. She thought I would fold. Then I would cave in and beg for their approval, like I always had. But that wasn't who I was anymore. This is your fault, Alex. My mom spat, her voice shaking. You're the one destroying this family. You think you can just replace us with them. I looked at her, my eyes cold. No, Mom. You've been replacing me my whole life. This is just me finally realizing I don't need you anymore, and you've already lost. She took a step forward, her eyes burning with rage. I'm your mother. You will never get rid of me. I held up my hand, cutting her off. I don't need to get rid of you. You've already done that to yourself. You've pushed me away for years. You've made it clear where your priorities lie, and I'm not on that list. Lily's dad stepped forward, his calm demeanor cutting through the tension. I think it's time for you two to leave now. His voice was steady, unshakable in the finality, and his tone made it clear there would be no more discussion. My mom stared at him, fury flashing in her eyes, but even she knew she was losing. My dad muttered something under his breath and started to walk toward the door, his shoulders tense. But he didn't say another word. They both walked out without another word, the door slamming behind them. I stood there still processing everything that had just happened. It was surreal. Lily came over and wrapped her arms around me. You did it, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. You stood up for yourself. I'm so proud of you. I hugged her back, feeling a rush of relief wash over me. I don't even know how I did it. It's like they just finally don't have any power over me anymore. Her mom and dad came over and gave me encouraging pats on the back, but it was Lily's words that really stuck with me. You're not alone anymore. We've got your back. Always. The weight on my chest had finally lifted. For the first time, I could breathe without that constant pressure weighing me down. I could see a future where I didn't have to beg for scraps of love or attention. A future where I made my own choices, where I was in control. The whole night felt like a strange, surreal blur, but I knew one thing for sure. I had finally stood up for myself, and I wasn't going back. Hours passed in. The evening continued on in a strange kind of calm. The tension that had built up throughout the night seemed to have evaporated the moment my parents walked out the door. But that calmness didn't last long. Just as I started to relax, my phone burst. I glanced down at it, half expecting something Monday, but as I saw my mom's name flashed across the screen, I could feel my blood pressure rise again. I didn't even want to look at it, but I did anyway. A text from her. "We're not done here. You'll regret this. We'll be contacting the lawyer about your inheritance. You'll pay for this." I could almost hear her shrill, venomous voice in my head as I read the message. It wasn't a threat, it was a promise, and I knew it. But the difference now is that it didn't scare me anymore. It didn't hold the weight it once did. I glanced at Lily, who was sitting next to me, her parents giving us some space to just process the night. I showed her the message, and she let out a soft laugh. "Is she serious?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. "Dead serious," I muttered, but there was no trace of fear in my voice. If anything, I was amused. I hit the reply button, my fingers typing with confidence, almost like the words were coming from a part of me I didn't even know existed. "You're right. You won't be done here. But I'll tell you this. Keep your money. You can keep your inheritance. And when you decide you want to talk to me like an adult without the threats and the manipulation, you know where to find me. But don't bother trying anything else. It won't work. And if you think I'm scared, you've got another thing coming." I hit send, and the weight that had been on my shoulders for so long felt even lighter. It felt like I had closed a chapter of my life that had dragged on for way too long. Just as I put my phone down, it buzzed again. This time it was my dad. He didn't even bother with a message, just a string of angry voice notes. I clicked on the first one, listening to him rant about how I was ruining my life, how I was going to regret this, how I was throwing everything away. I let the message finish, then clicked the next one. Another tirade, the same insults, the same empty threats, and then another, and another. They were getting more frantic, the desperation in his voice growing, but none of it hit home. I didn't even bother replying. I didn't need to. There was nothing left for me to say. Lily's dad caught my eye from across the room, raising his eyebrows with a knowing look. "Everything okay?" I nodded, my lips curling into a small but satisfied smile. "Yeah, they're just not used to me standing up for myself, but they'll get over it." Lily leaned in closer, wrapping her arms around me again. "You've got this. They can't touch you anymore." And that was the truth. I realized something then. There was nothing they could take from me that mattered. Not their threats, not their manipulations, not even their inheritance. I'd already walked away from their version of family and stepped into something real. My phone buzzed again, and I glanced down. This time it was a text from my sister. "Mom and Dad are furious with you. You really messed up this time." I could feel the old anger bubbling up again, but this time I wasn't going to let it control me. I wasn't going to get sucked into her drama, her victim complex. I wasn't going to play her game. Instead of replying, I looked at Lily, smiling warmly. "You know what I said standing up? I think it's time for a celebration. I'm done with all of this." I grabbed my jacket, turning to Lily's parents with a grin. "Let's go grab some drinks. We've got a lot to celebrate." As we left, I didn't feel the bitterness or regret I had expected. Instead, I felt like I was finally walking away from a life that had been holding me back into a future that was mine to shape. And as I stepped out into the cool night air, I realized that the family I'd been searching for, the family I had been longing for, had been here all along. Not in the people I was born to, but in the ones who chose to stand by me, who supported me, who cared about me. I didn't need anyone's approval anymore. I didn't need their toxic love or their manipulation. I had found something better, and nothing, not even their money or their threats, could take that away from me. And that, for the first time in my life, felt like true freedom. So what do you think? Am I out of line for standing up to them? Or did I do the right thing?